Welcome back to the channel, everyone, and a really popular video that I did about 3 or 4 years ago was my Seatbox setup. At the time I had like a Preston carbon seat box, I had obviously old Preston trays and whatnot, and it went down really well. I got loads of views and it was a simple setup. And obviously now I've moved companies, I moved Nufish now, I've got a different seat box to that video, so I thought it was about time we refreshed that video and did a new one. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to have a quick look at how I lay my tackle out, because I'm fishing all the time now, matches every week, and I've sort of worked out a lovely little simple setup that works ever so well for me. So I think we'll have a look. There's a couple of trays that I use. I actually have a few different ones as well, so when the weather's bad I'll use a hoodie, for example, but when it's like nice and sunny I prefer just an open tray. So we'll talk a little bit about why and that in a minute. So yeah, without further ado, if you're interested in seeing how I set up my seat box so it's comfortable for me, keep watching. Okay, so the seat box itself is a Preston Inception. Now, I had a carbon seat box before, which is a fantastic box, probably the best seat box ever made, and that's me obviously speaking without my Preston hat on anymore. However, the frame was a little bit too high for me, and because I'm only short, I was always on my heels were always off the foot plate when I was fishing, and when you're long pole fishing obviously that's not a good thing. So I went for the Inception early part of last year, which value wise was a massive downgrade. Obviously I went from the most expensive seat box to one of the cheapest. I think I saw a shop selling these at 215 quid the other day, Solihull Angling I believe, which just blew my mind, because obviously I know how good this seat box is. So the box is an Inception. Now I've got a double side drawer on here. A few people have asked about my side drawer. It's the double deep drawer unit I use on the side. I have the top one with my rigs in, and then the bottom one has got all my bits and bobs in, my plummet, my kit marker, my shot, all that sort of stuff. So the two drawers work really well for me. Under the seat I've got a few extra rigs, a few hook lengths. I'm not one of these anglers who carries loads of rigs. I have, like I said, one my side drawer with a selection in there. I've got my Cypris, my Furies, my big heads, and then I've got my pace floats at the moment because that's the sort of fishing I'm doing. And that's it. I don't have a stack or anything like that. I keep everything in here. Another benefit is the box has a deep base. Now, everyone these days carries bags, EVA bags, spare carry-alls, with all this stuff in. I get all that stuff in here now. I can get it in a deep base. I've got a box with all my pole pots in, I've got my catapults in there, I've got my bigger pole cups in there, my counter, my catapults, all goes in my box. So I'm just never going to forget it, because I'm a bugger for leaving stuff in my van or leaving it at home, like in my bag, because I forgot to put it in my main carry-all. So just something to bear in mind. Even though it's a small box, it's fantastic. Honestly, I wouldn't go back now. I love this box. It's fantastic. My only slight tweak I would make, if I could design the perfect box for me, would be this box with 36mm legs. But we haven't got that. So this with 30mm legs works for me. Now I've got some shorter front legs in, which I think is important when you're fishing on commercial platforms, so that the legs aren't in your way so much. But I've also got some really long legs. At Shearsby Valley, where I fish a lot, you sort of see my live matches there, I actually sit with my foot plate over the water slightly and then long legs down. A couple of reasons. It allows me to see along the margin better, so I'm a little bit further out. The rules allow me to do this, and I can see down the edge a little bit better, so I'm not craning my neck trying to get down the edge. And also it gets my keep nets out a little bit further, so they're in deep water, which I think, from a fish welfare point of view, is better anyway. So yeah, I have them front long legs there, and that really sort of brings me on to my side tray arrangement. So after a little bit of time of tweaking and messing around with my setup, I've tried all the different trays in the Nufish range to see what's right for me before picking the ones. And you'll have noticed on my videos, I've had some videos where I've got the combi on, I've got the open with the 60/40 light, what I've got on here, and I've even got the hoodie at times in some videos. And it's purely me just been experimenting to see what's right for me. Now, the combi's fantastic. If you want that open area at the front and then the aqualock sort of box area, brilliant. The hoodie, again, is a nice little option if it's going to rain. Not too much rain, but a nice light drizzle or whatever, the hoodie's perfect. But for 9 times out of 10, I actually prefer a more open setup. So I use the 60/40 light, and as you can see, it doesn't need a support leg. That's one thing about our trays that are fantastic. I don't have a support leg, I don't have a support arm under it. it's just brilliant. I can just use it, it's fantastic. It's just the right tray. You could get 6 sort of 3-pint tubs on there, you could get a couple of ground bait bowls on there, you could get loads of little bits and pieces. So it's just the ideal tray for your bait, that is. At the front, I've got the bowl and ring, which is never not on my setup. This little beauty, because I fish paste a lot, I actually use it as like a water tank. So I've always got that full of water when I'm fishing paste in the summer. So basically, whenever I bait up, dip my water in, make sure my hand's wet for when I'm moulding my paste on the hook, and back in. Brilliant. But as today, I'm doing some method feeder fishing up against the island. I've got my method feeder mix in there and my mould, and I'm loading up from that. So that's just a really handy bowl to have. It's just the right size. It's not one of those massive ones where you end up with too much bait. The bulk of my bait is in the bucket, and then I just get out a couple of pints at a time and use that to work with, or like I say, fill it up with water when I'm paste fishing. So that stays on my front leg, just in front of my 60-40. So I've got my 60-40 set up almost just a few inches in front of my seat box, I'd say. So that my catapult, I always fish from this bowl, if that makes sense. So like these hard pellets that I'm firing over to the island today, that's there to hand where I'm going to be doing my catapulting from. So all my other baits that I may be potting in are over this side, and then I have this one that's to hand for all my firing in baits, if that makes sense. So I've got my ground bait, all my bowl of water at the front, my feeding baits here, and then all my other bits and pieces. The one thing I was struggling with was having the space to put hook length boxes, wafters, hook baits, all that kind of stuff. My flask, I've always got my flask with me, feeders. So I just started using this simple side tray at the back, just off the back leg, and it just gives me enough space to get my hook boxes on there, my bits and bobs. Because I do my filming, I have a GoPro, I use a battery pack for it. My battery pack sits on there so that I'm always powered up for my camera, my chest cam that I wear. So that is a really handy tray for me. That, like I say, I put my hook boxes on there, I put my flask on there, and I put my battery pack on there for my filming. So that's it. It's quite simple. I have that, like I say, that lovely lightweight tray at the back, that little simple tray. I've got the 60-40 there as my main tray, and then I've got the bowl and ring, which works out perfect for me. Like I said, if it is raining, like yesterday I was fishing a match and it was raining quite a lot all day, I'm lucky that I've got the hoodie one as well, and I just use the hoodie one. So I've got exactly the same, which is the same size. I've got exactly the same arrangement. I just swapped the 60-40 light, which is the open, for the hoodie, which is exactly the same size. And it just gives me that bit more protection, which obviously when you're fishing like with hard pellets and stuff, really important. Round this side is simplicity in itself, so we'll quickly whiz round there and show you what I have on this side. But that's it, bowl and ring, 60-40, and then this lovely little tray at the back. Okay, so that's the side tray. So like I say, a couple of different bits and pieces there. And then on this side, for my keep nets, I have just a Preston toolbar, which allows me to get 3 to 5 nets on there. A lot of the venues I go on, you do need 3 to 5 nets, so I've got that option at the front. That snap lock system is brilliant, so why would I change it? My feeder arm again is a Preston one. I've got my yoga rest on the front, and then I've got this little sort of angle cross arm with my little butt rest on there. I actually don't, this might sound silly, but I actually don't tighten that up because I'm often moving this about in the day to change the angle of my rod, so I find that if I just leave that loose, it finds its own where it needs to be when I'm moving it around, kicking it out of the way and whatnot. So that's only for when I'm feeder fishing, so it's 9 times out of 10 at the moment I'm pole fishing, so that's not even on my setup, but I thought I'd show you anyway. And I have it all off that front leg. That just means that when I'm casting, I put the rod down, and then I've just got that little bit of slack because I'm putting the rod in front of me. It just gives me that little bit of slack to give me just a little, creep my rod forward a little bit. If I was to bring it right back here, I'm more inclined, I'm so tight to my feeder when I chuck it up against an island that I could move it. So I have it at the front leg and I just pop it down in front of me. So nice little setup that. And then I've got to have a pole sock and some sort of gripper. So I just use, again, the Preston one. It's absolutely brilliant. The pole sock, obviously, I use that for my bigger sections, and then this like little gripper I tend to use for my number 3. It's just brilliant. I have it on the middle leg. A lot of anglers have it at the front, but I just find when I'm shipping back, I just clunk it straight in there, and it's to hand more. I just think it's more to hand. And then you've probably seen on a lot of my live matches recently, I'm like hooking fish, and I'm having to add sections a lot. The fish are mental at the moment, and I always have a couple of spare sections in here. And then I can quickly add them on and chase the fish out if I need to. So all to hand, all very safe and secure. And then I've got my roost. I don't have a roost for the other end of my kits, but I do have one for this end. It's something I've brought into my fishing more recently, to be honest with you, and it just helps me keep organised. Now you may notice it's quite a big one. It's an old Preston one that I've butchered actually to fit. This is like an umbrella clamp, and I've just butchered the snap lock fitting on it to allow me to get it in there. But it's quite a big wide roost, which allows me to get several top kits in there, which is brilliant, or rods, whatever. But then I've also cut these little bits off to make these extra wide. Now, what I just said there about having sections to hand, I'm often using 13 metres, and I'll have a 14.5 and 16 metre section, so I just pop them in those wider grooves, or any spare 5s or 6s, whatever I'm doing at the time. I can just sit there out the way, and it just gives me another place to rest my pole should I need to. So that's all I've got for that. My top kits are nicely to hand, my spare sections are to hand, my gripper's there, everything's all to hand. It's just a nice little setup. I've not got loads and loads of bits on me, but I've got just enough to make pole fishing easy. Everything's to hand, and everything's as efficient as I need it to be, really. So yeah, that's how I set up. Hope you like that, and we'll see you again on the next video.